Greetings, October 4th, 2020, as we continue the theme of love. I know in the last couple of weeks we have not presented our video, but we're coming forth now. I think we've made the necessary adjustments, and we are ready to go forward in October with our lessons and on this theme of love. Today we have an intriguing story that many of you are familiar with it. It's one that's been told over and over again. It's a true friend intervenes. The story of David and Saul and Jonathan, 1 Samuel 19th chapter, verses 1 through 7. A universal statement that we can make is that although families are important, family dysfunction can skew our priorities and lead us to ruin. Is there a greater priority than family? Well, our scripture says Jonathan opposed the unjust intentions of his father, King Saul, in order to offer support and protection to David. Our goals for today's lesson is to explore the story of Jonathan's defense of David when David was opposed by Saul, to long for love and justice within the family and beyond, to grow in our love and devotion for justice for others. Saul ordered his sons, Jonathan, and all his servants to kill David, but Jonathan, Saul's son, liked David very much. Saul put Jonathan in a difficult place. Jonathan loved David, and God made a wonderful bond of friendship between them, sealed by a covenant, 1 Samuel 18, 1 through 4. Jonathan knew David was destined to be the next king of Israel, even though Jonathan was officially the crown prince. At the same time, his father and king told him to kill David. So this was a difficult place Saul had put his servants in. They all loved David, yet they all were commanded by their king to kill David. Saul put David in a difficult place. Who can he trust? Even if he trusted Jonathan, he surely knew there was at least one ambitious man on Saul's staff who would do whatever Saul said without regard to right or wrong. So in the second verse we see, so Jonathan warned David, "My father Saul is trying to kill you. Be on guard tomorrow morning. Stay somewhere safe and hide. I'll go out and stand by my father in the field where you'll be. I'll talk to my father about you, and I'll tell you whatever I find out." I'll tell you whatever I find out. Without doubt, Saul and many of his staff criticized David. They looked for anything they could to bring against him. And if they could find nothing, they made something. Jonathan got an earful of this, but he didn't change his opinion of David. He still liked David. I think in some translations, he delighted in David. This made Saul furious, but Jonathan knew he did right. He should not kill David because his father and king told him to do something that was clearly disobedient to God. Jonathan knew the Hebrew Bible as it was. You shall not murder in Exodus 20:13. The Bible is clear, and Saul was on record as saying that they should kill David. We are under authority and commanded to submit to God's order or of authority in many arenas. In all of our relationships, whether they be with our parents and whether they be with someone else, we are never excused from sin and doing wrong because we obeyed an authority that told us to do wrong. In this case, it would be wrong for Jonathan to obey his father and kill David. This was a case where Jonathan would say what the apostles said when they were told to stop preaching the gospel in Acts 5:29. We ought to obey God rather than humans. But Jonathan also had the heart of the apostles in Acts 5. They were beaten severely, were willing to suffer for what was right before God, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer for his name. We find that in Acts 5:40 through 41. Jonathan was willing to take his lumps for obeying God, and he did not whine about it. Jonathan did more than refuse to help Saul. He helped David. Jonathan could have asked, look, what I want, no part of, I don't want any part of this. I'm not going to help my father do something I know is wrong, but I want to try to stop it. I won't try to stop it either. That's what he could have done. I'll just be neutral and let God work it out. You know how we might be. But Jonathan didn't take that attitude. In verses 4 through 5, in loyalty to David, Jonathan speaks to Saul. So Jonathan spoke highly about David to his father Saul, telling him the king shouldn't do anything wrong to his servant David because he hasn't wronged you. In fact, his actions have helped you greatly. He risked his own life when he killed the Philistine, and the Lord won a great victory for all of Israel. You saw it and were happy about it. Why then would you do something wrong to an innocent person by killing David for no reason? Jonathan did more than secretly help David with information. He also spoke highly about David to Saul, his father. Jonathan let Saul know, Father, you have a certain opinion of David, but I don't share that opinion. I have and support David. You should also. That took a lot of courage, and it was the right thing for Jonathan to do. Jonathan spoke highly of David, which he could not do without hazard to himself. Herein, therefore, he performed the duty of a true friend and of a valiant man. A true friend intervenes. Jonathan was bold enough to tell his father that his anger and jealousy against David was wrong, and to say he has not done anything to you. Saul felt that David had wronged him in some manner, and he felt righteous in his cause. Jonathan delivered a needed word of correction. Jonathan reminded Saul of these events because Saul colored them with the meaning that justified his jealous desire to murder David. Saul knew that David killed the Philistine, but he could not believe that David did it for a righteous reason. He thought David did it just because to become famous and to take my throne. He's a grasping traitor. That's what Saul would say. I'm justified in killing him because I have to kill him before he kills me. Jonathan tried to bring Saul back to reality. He reminded his father, you saw it and were very happy about it. It was as if Jonathan said, when David first killed Goliath, you were happy just like everyone else was happy. In Saul's mind, there was a cause. In Saul's mind, David was not innocent. But the truth was that David was innocent, and there was no cause to kill him. Jonathan called Saul back to reality. And then in the 6th verse, Saul listened to Jonathan and then swore, as surely as the Lord lives, David won't be executed. So Jonathan summoned David and told him everything that they had talked about. Then Jonathan brought David back to Saul, and David served Saul as he had previously. This took real humility for Saul. It was easy for him to say, I'm the king and I'm right. I don't care about what you say, Jonathan. But in this case, Saul listened to the voice of Jonathan. This shows that the Lord had genuinely touched Saul's heart. God used Jonathan, but it wasn't the work of Jonathan. It was the work of the Lord. And Saul recognized this by declaring an oath. He swore. He seems to have all worked out well. The command to kill David is revoked. And the story ends, Saul and David are together again as in previous days. That's a wonderful lesson about a true friend intervening. The challenges for the week is that we've heard the statement, blood is thicker than water. What are the merits of this old saying? That's one challenge we ask. The second challenge is, what are some situations in which a person's values and relationships conflict with the wishes of a parent? For example, a parent's disapproval of a teen's boyfriend or girlfriend, political disagreements with adult children and parents, an adult child choosing a career other than the one the parent hoped he or she would pursue. Number 3, summarize the history of Saul and David from 1 Samuel 15th chapter through the 17th chapter. How does today's passage in the 19th chapter, how does that intensify the conflict we've already seen, and how did Jonathan get caught in the middle of this conflict? Well, when have you found yourself in a similar situation? What did you do about it? Number 4, create a model for bringing peace to opposing parties based on today's lesson text. And then number 5, think of one of your friends who might feel uncomfortable at a family gathering. How can you help them think of ways to ease that discomfort? Well, that's our lesson for today, October 4th, 2020, from 1 Samuel 19, 1 through 7. A true friend intervenes. Blessings to you all.